Hi, all you art nerds out there. I hope you had a great week and that you're looking forward to a sunny weekend as I am. I have been doing a couple of commissions for friends who wanted portraits of their kids, and that just made me realize that I need to draw more faces in order to be quicker and thus improve my wage. So that's exactly what I'm doing, portraits. So the first exercise I wanted to put myself through was to practice a bit of shadow mapping, and honestly, just to get myself to stop being so precious about my portraits and just be more free with the lines that I make. And I thought it would be easier to do if I had like a basis where I knew that the anatomy was kind of okay, and I could just be loose and free with my pencil strokes or even with my inking. And that's what I'm trying to do here. It's important to divide your shadows and lights, like to group them before you start shading a portrait. And I'm still learning to perfect that. And I saw some artists drawing like big random shapes for the shades or for the shadows, and just being creative with the way that they shade. Not just with the regular hatching and cross hatching, but just with lines going in all directions and scumbling and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what I'm trying to practice here, and I may go back to this drawing when I'm done and just color it in, but today I'm just trying to figure out like the main shapes of the face without going into too much detail and without all those little fine lines. The mistake that I made here, maybe it's not a mistake, but it probably would have helped that when you block in your main proportions for the face, it helps to use like sharp lines or straight lines and angles, because when you do curves, you tend to lose that angle. You tend to make it like more convex or concave than it actually is, or more curvy than it is, and it kind of the entire face loses its sharpness, I guess. So that's also something I need to work on more. And here I am just blocking in some weird shapes and kind of ruining my face, but that's the point of it. Like, I'm trying not to be so protective of the fine details. The main thing here really is to determine which planes are the most important ones and which elements are the most important ones. And if I were using ink in this case, I could play with the line thickness, like use thicker lines for parts that are darker or just more important to me, and thinner lines for the rest. And this is actually the fun and easy part, where you just fill those shapes with random lines and just try and figure out how to make something look darker than the other. So you did all the more taxing work, I guess, the work where you need more concentration at first, and now you're just kind of filling in. And now I'm going in with the ink, because I noticed that when I do ink, like, my lines aren't very spontaneous, and I tend to lose, like, the dynamic of my first sketch. So this is an exercise in just being a bit more loose and more energetic with the lines, and not worrying too much about the result, but just seeing what those patterns will do for the face. And this is going to take more practice on my part, because of course I'm not going to master this with one exercise, but I will have to incorporate it in my daily sketching, just to be more brave with my lines. She kind of looks like she's wearing some kind of a tribal mask or something, which is fun, but it's probably not going to make a difference when I go over this with paint. And even if I left it like this, it would be interesting. There's also an exercise where you sketch with a continuous line, and I'm trying to do that a little bit here and not stop too much, because that also adds to the fluidity of the entire piece. And because that was so much fun, we're going to do that once more. Eating an apple. And just roughly sketching in. I'm trying to keep the Loomis head in mind here, roughly, because it does help. And I'm trying to just get used to that for when I draw more things from imagination. This is also helping me draw more from my elbow, which I don't tend to do usually. I use my wrist a lot, and I guess it depends on the size of the paper that you're working with, but it all goes back to that looseness that you get when you work from your elbow. I should be doing this without any undersketch, but for now it's making it easier for me to start this way. A little bit like speed painting too, speed drawing, except for the fact that I have a basis to like work on top of. And I'm just tracing, so I don't have to think too much, but the movements of my hand are different from what they would be if I had to think about what I was doing. The last time I mentioned that I wanted to practice getting my tones on the palette right and not blending too much on the canvas, and that's what I'm practicing with gouache here, because I thought it might be a good practice for oil, and gouache is cheaper and I can just use in my regular sketchbook where I already have portraits, like sketches of faces. So that's what I did here, and this is also going to take a lot more practice. It's not perfect, and that face had a lot of shadows in it, but I think there's already like a slight improvement. And the next portrait I'm doing, I wanted to challenge myself to figure out how many color pencils I really need for portraits, because I only have like a small set of 12 polychromos color pencils, and for most purposes they're probably enough. I bought 2 or 3 additional colors that I thought were prevalent in the type of motifs that I sketch. And I'm combining these with no-name color pencils. I really don't know who the manufacturer is. All I know is that there are Sarah Kay drawings on them. But I tested them and they were actually really good and pigmented, and I even tested their light fastness by putting them out in the sun. So I'm combining them with my polychromos, and I tried to make things harder by actually eliminating some colors that I would usually need for a portrait. Like, I did not use a flesh color in this case, although I do have one. I think it's called red beige or beige red, something like that. And I did not use my ochre. I have burnt ochre, which would have helped me a lot, but I tried to just limit my palette and see what I could do with fewer colors, just to figure out if 12 pencils would be okay to use for portraits. I'm always envious of YouTubers or other artists who show their like huge set of, I don't know, 150 color pencils. And I love that. I wish I had that, but since I try out so many different mediums, I just can't afford to buy good quality pencils in that huge amount. And I think it's even worse for pastels. I would love to do more with soft pastels, but good soft, like really good soft pastels are expensive, like the ones from Schminke or Sennelier. So there are some mediums that can be mixed better than others, where you can mix more colors from just your basic 3 colors and black and white. And color pencils aren't exactly the best ones to mix, and neither are soft pastels. So for those two, you just need a huge variety, and of course that's going to be more expensive than buying like 3 shades of, I don't know, gouache or acrylic or something like that, and mixing your own colors. So I like to just challenge myself and see how far I can go with what I have. And I don't think it's bad at all, because I ended up using colors for this portrait and even for the hair that I never would have used in a normally. And it may not be completely realistic, but it adds a little bit of playfulness and colorfulness and character. And here's the finished result. And I promise you, this looks much better in reality. I had a really hard time taking a photograph of this. For some reason, when I take photographs with my phone, it increases the contrast and does something weird to the color, so I still have to figure that out, how to do that. Scanning would probably be a better idea. But that was my portrait session for today. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you benefited just a little bit. And I will see you in my next episode. Take care and bye-bye.